All right. Calling the regular meeting of the Plan and Design Commission of Highland Park to order. It's October 21st, 2025. It is 7:02 p.m. So, please call the roll.
Commissioner Incheck.
Here.
Commissioner Fettner.
Here.
Commissioner Nanis.
Here.
Commissioner Henry.
Here.
Commissioner Mantis.
Here.
Vice Chair Kirsch.
Present.
Chair Moore.
Present.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair. I'd also like to recognize Autumn Fallis, Student Rep, and Corporation Counsel Marcus Martinez. And I'm told that City Council Liaison Yumi Ross will be attending, but she will be coming in later in the meeting. She's at another meeting right next door, the Cultural Arts Commission at this time. So we're double booked, unfortunately.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. All right, the first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was September 16th of 2025. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Fettner. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, seconded by Commissioner Henry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
One abstention.
We have an abstention because we haven't had an absence. Okay. All right, making sure we're all in order. The first of our scheduled business tonight was going to be public hearing PUD-2025-00057. And that has been withdrawn. Do you need me to read out what it was?
That's correct. That item was withdrawn. The applicant's withdrawal email was included in the packet, so there's no action requested for the commission on that item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need to close the public hearing now? We do open that, right?
It wasn't open.
It was never open.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Okay.
It was just, it's.
If it comes back,
Continuation of design review and sign package with variations to city zoning code for 791 through 799, Central 91 through 799, Central Avenue. Oh, I forget to turn this thing on. Where's the answer? So the recommendation from staff is recommend that the commission reviews the changes made to the submitted materials. Staff did provide comments shortly after the 9/16 meeting on 9/19, and staff have reviewed the revised materials that the applicant has since submitted and the response to the requested changes. Just as a follow-up from the last meeting, the commission did meet on September 16th and directed a certificate of approval to be drafted. That was 6-0 and continued to this meeting tonight on the 21st. The considerations is design review for proposed improvements, including design, material, landscaping, layout. The overall ask is a request for an increase in height of the structure by 9 feet. Removal of existing exterior parking spaces, and then additional concrete walkway to be added to the exterior of the building. In addition to that, a sign package has been proposed as well. This was, the comments for the sign package were included with the comments given to the applicant on 9/19 for them to review and to revise. Just an overall, the principal structure will be raised by 9 feet. A new entryway canopy, 13 new windows along the western and eastern facades, 2 new addition to various measurement and dimensional requests that we have made to the overall parking lot and structure of the parking lot. In addition, the tenant space is marked on the northern side of the property there. You can see where their tenant space is going to be as well. But this is the revised plan that they submitted to us in response to the comments that staff did provide them on 9/19.
right, and staff also had a comment about landscaping along the west side, and the applicant, that got cut off there, but the applicant indicated there's already existing landscaping that meets the code requirement for landscaping just along the proposed addition. Thanks, Anthony.
No problem. This is the existing elevations currently. This was not included in the original presentation from the September 16th meeting, so this is as the building currently stands from all elevations. And this is an example of what the addition will look like. It will add the addition to the principal property owner's tenant space. So it kind of shows it from all elevations there, including the sign that will be a part of the sign package. You could see that on the east elevation at the bottom.
Can I make a comment
Sure.
on this slide? And so, yeah, so the addition is here. And so you'll see it is higher than the existing building by whatever that dimension is. There's no height relief being requested. The improvement complies by right with the setbacks and the height requirement for the underlying zoning. So again, this is just design review with the sign package and then the variations that are related to the fact that they're getting the sign package. So thank you.
I'll just give one more look for the before and the after, just to kind of have that ready there. So overall for design review, our comments on 919 were sufficiently addressed from staff's point of view. They did provide each individual attachment that you see was addressed. It had comments in it that were addressed by the applicant sufficiently from our eyes. It was just a comment by staff. The sign package, not too much has changed from the previous iteration that we did present to you, other than there were comments that staff did have on dimensions and specifics. This is just a reiteration of what was proposed. This is also listed in the staff report as well, so if you can't read the screen. The only one note I did want to make about it is that, again, per section 150/2024, it allows for 15% of the horizontal area of the facade or 100 square feet per tenant, whichever is lesser. In the case, 100 square feet would be the number that each tenant would typically have to go by. So overall, for the total square footage area, it's 336.5 total square footage for all wall signs included. That includes the proposed tenant signage and the signage that is already there. The change to the existing ground signage just accounted for the small forward focus sign that's on the western portion. So that increased the overall square footage of the ground signage to 78 square feet total for both the ground sign as you enter the property and the specific ground sign for the tenant.
Can I make a comment on that slide? So the only thing I'd like to add about this is that note that planner Mistretta put up there, the section 150.2024. Now, I just want to add, so the applicant for their sign package, so their sign package proposal consists of essentially two elements. So it's drawings, which of course the commission is used to seeing, with, spec information on it, dimensions, et cetera. But it also included 2 or 3 pages of text laying out the written requirements. And I just want to point out that the applicant actually used the section 150.2024 limit for the individual tenant spaces. So that is consistent with what the code would have otherwise allowed by right on a tenant by tenant basis. I just want to point that out. Thank you.
No problem. These next few slides are just sort of the renderings provided by the applicant. These have not changed. These were the same renderings that were provided to us for the proposal from 916. This is the facade with the new Keshet sign. Keshet is the property owner. You can see the logo on the left and, the western side there of the facade. So it's kind of hard to see in this image, but this also includes the tenant signage as well. You can see it from this point of view. And then this is the ground sign that is the principal entryway ground sign. This was shown before the commission before as well. This has not changed. The only change that was requested is that the applicant include dimensions of the sign faces, which they did do. And this is the canopy that will be introduced to the actual principal entryway of Keshet. So this was not included in the presentation before. I just thought I'd throw this slide in here to kind of show that as well. These are the standards for the sign packages. Won't go too much into details with these, but this is what we go by. And then approval process, PDC does in fact have authority over the design review and sign package. It can discuss the proposal and the changes that have been made. It can direct approval, denial, or recommend changes of the drafted certificate of approval. There is one note, staff do recommend that the PDC consider the following amendment to the certificate of approval. This would state in their signage standard, the planner Burhop was mentioning earlier, they had a list, sort of a two-page document prior to their renderings and dimensions where they kind of go through in detail with their sign package. We wanted to put a note, there is a note in there under design requirements that states that that we just want to know that the city does not or will not enforce content of signage as stated. The landlord intends to do so, but the city will not enforce that. And you can see attachment 4 to get specific with that.
Specifically, the city does not regulate the content of the signs.
Right, so we just, if
It ought to say that.
right, if the commission wants to adopt the certificate of approval for the sign package and the design review, we would just recommend that this amendment be added to that. And of course, the private property owner can certainly regulate that as they see fit. It's just the city will not enforce that V2 provision.
Are there any questions for staff?
Is it the city does not or the city will not?
Oh, that's a typo.
That says
Thanks
both.
Thanks for calling that out. That's a typo.
Does not regulate the content, not enforce. It does not regulate the content, therefore will not enforce any provisions of B2 that they're requesting there or have included. I don't know that they were requesting that we do it. We just want to be clear that we're not, that we do not regulate it, nor do we enforce the private restrictions that they may or may not place on the sign.
And why is that necessary in this case? I don't remember seeing this in any other sign package.
Because they put it in there. We have to react. We're approving what they provided, and in there, there's same question. Yeah.
Are there any other questions for staff?
Can you flip back to the standards of approval sign, pages of approval sign, page, please? Thanks. So I guess on point A, I'm just looking at the proposals. So it says unified and consistent throughout the building or property. And I'm looking at packet page 30. It looks like Forward Focus is proposing a new halo lit sign, whereas the other tenants are all going to have backlit signs. Would that be still be considered unified and consistent, given the different types of lighting on the signs?
I can let the applicant speak to the actual specifics of the lighting, but as far as I can say from a city perspective, backlit and halo lit are very similar, if not the same, as long as the letters are all opaque, non-pass-through. I think the reason that it might say halo lit is just because it's the actual halo style, which might have a little bit more of a glow. The problem, the one issue with unified signage with this particular property is the signage there are 4 signs that are already existing. So that was really where the unified is going to be kind of going forward with the sign package. We wanted to wrap that in with the design review as well.
So they're looking to kind of grandfather them and unwind them as they change, as opposed to forcing a change of them completely from the initiation here.
And I can ask the applicant, but then on a go-forward basis, would it be halo lit or backlit?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
They say in the sign package, this is B3, tenant's primary sign letters shall be 3-dimensional, individual pin-mounted, fabricated reverse channel letters, internally illuminated, in parentheses, backlit, halo type.
In August of 2023. And so the standard itself says existing signage does not need to be modified to comply with the standard. So the intention of that is that as additional signage is added, it would be consistent and follow in with this, with the standard. And then just the intention relative to any approval of the city of Highland Park, the intention there was that it would be any permits or any of those types of approvals. It was nothing about language, but perfectly understanding why that caveat must be added to that just to keep everything clean. So that's not a problem at all. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex Thornton from LCM Architects.
I wanted to make a few corrections first to staff's presentation.
Okay.
The forward focus ground sign is an existing sign. That is, it used to be Fifth Third Bank, and it is just being adapted now to forward focus. So it is not a new element that is being added to the property. Carl, do we have the packet I sent previously?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Because that has a new rendering for that sign, because that's the old sign rendering. I did want to mention, we addressed, my name's Alec Thornton, ALECTHORNTON.
Were they any of those, sir?
I didn't see the rendering, but it was in the packet I sent Anthony recently. So we did address also your comments regarding the monument sign. That's what I'm hoping Carl will pull up to unify the materials there.
Okay.
I do want to note also again that the tenant signage element of that monument sign is existing, and then the newer element is the Keshet sign that goes up a little higher than that portion and faces the street because it's a marquee tenant and it's the owner. So.
I don't immediately see, are you able to forward them to me, sir, by email? Is that possible?
Yeah, I can do that.
Is it page 37 of the packet?
This is, yeah. Are you able to take a moment? It's not a big deal.
I can do it.
If it takes a moment, we want to get things right. If it takes a minute, it takes a minute.
Okay.
If you guys can just speak through that, I mean, it is the sign there. So.
Yeah, that's the elevation of it. How we adapted it was we used all that copper patina that we have on the elevator or on the gym addition. And then we have a silver anodized coping to the top of both. We dropped down the tenant signage a little bit to give more space to the Keshet signage element. So those would be adjustments. Otherwise, I think that's about it. If you have any comments for me or questions.
All right, do we have any questions for the applicant? Questions for the applicant over here? All right, well, thank you. I don't think we have any questions. Does anyone from the public have a question or a comment? All right, no questions from the public. All right. So we are adopting the findings of fact. Is that what we need to do? Carl?
I don't think we have findings.
We don't have findings of fact yet.
Right, we just said, if I may make a motion.
Yes, you may.
Carl, could you put the 2 on the applicant's signage standards page?
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a
Second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Henry. Do you have any discussion amongst the commission? All right, please call the vote.
Commissioner Incheck.
Aye.
Commissioner Fatner.
Aye.
Commissioner Nanis.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Mantis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kirsch.
Aye.
And Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. This item is approved with
The amendment.
amendment as stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next item is DES-2025-00076, a sign package amendment, design review and variations from city code at 1200 Old Skokie Road.
Sorry.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Here we have the design review and sign package amendment for 1200 Old Skokie Road for Lucid. This was continued from the last meeting. Here we have a screen grab of the existing conditions of the site, a two-story building formerly occupied by Tesla. At the prior commission consideration took place September 16th. The commission expressed overall support for the project's scope, except for the illuminated graphic print on the proposed ground sign of the property. This sign package amendment was introducing 2 additional wall signs beyond what was last occupied by Tesla, as well as a ground sign. There are 2 wall signs in the east facade facing US Highway 415 wall signs. There are currently no ground signs, wayfinding signs, or signs on the west facade facing the back of the lot. The proposed amendment will not alter any of the existing tenant sign spaces besides Lucid. So just as a reminder, the east facade is proposing 1 main identification sign. On the top is what is proposed. On the bottom is what was existing with Tesla. They are proposing 2 branding wall signs, each 90 square feet at the door first story level, and 1 larger identification sign, roughly 267 square feet on the second level. The existing space, only had 1 276 square foot internally illuminated wall sign. The south facade, they are removing an 84 square foot wall sign that was situated at the southwest corner of the building, and they're replacing that with just a 7 square foot sign stating service for the service area of the building. The applicants listened to the commentary from the last meeting and did propose an alternative to the proposed ground sign, but I do want to reiterate that it is the applicant's desire to move forward with this one, but the commission has the right to discuss the alternative and vote on that at the conclusion of this matter. So this proposed ground sign is what the commission viewed at the last meeting. It is shaped like a V with 2 sides, 85 square foot per side. The illuminated graphic is static. It will not change. It will be changed intermittently based on when Lucid wanted to have a different promotional advertisement or branding as directed by their corporate. The structure dimensions are 10 feet by 18 feet, but you can see that that picture is illuminated. Now, the second option to the proposed ground sign is slightly on a larger 12 by 18 structure, still 18 feet in height. It's now 12 feet wide. It eliminated the internally illuminated graphic print. The Lucid across the top is still illuminated. It is slightly bigger. It's 6.71 square feet, whereas the illuminated graphic print option was 5 square feet. There is a brand logo at the bottom of each side that's roughly 9 square feet. You can't see it in this picture because accompanying this option will be a 12 by 22 vehicle display platform. To my understanding, it is Lucid's desire to have this platform with this option so that they can promote their vehicles as they would have in the illuminated graphic prints. It is not double V-shaped. It's a rectangle, as you can see, next to the car in the top right top view diagram of the picture, and the dimensions are 12 feet by 2 feet. And here we have a rendering that was provided for this option by the applicant. You can see on the right, the car is situated right in front of the sign structure, and that's what the view would be if you are heading south. If you're heading north on the left, the car on the platform will be situated behind the structure. And again, a little tougher to see from your seat, but including the agenda packet, you can see the branding logo at the center bottom of this proposed alternative structure. So the proposed sign package amendment is for 3 east facade wall signs, 2 90 square foot branding ones, 1 267 square foot identification one, 1 south facade wall sign, a smaller one that says service, and 1 illuminated ground sign, depending on the options. It will affect the increase in total signage. Option 1 with the illuminated graphic print will increase the total sign package area by 263.4 square feet. If the commission desires to vote option 2, which does not include illuminated graphic prints, it will increase the total sign area by 109.1 square feet, or 9.8% of the total signage. Here we have the standards for the sign packages, as you guys just looked at. And the approval process, staff recommends to carefully review and discuss the proposed change and to determine which ground sign option the commission would like to move forward with. Staff also wants to note that a draft certificate of approval for the design review was included as part of this agenda packet. I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Madam Chair, may I just recognize Council Member Yumi Ross, City Council Liaison to the Plan and Design Commission, did join us during Zuman's presentation.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I had Cultural Arts Advisory Group at the same time. Thank you.
I had mentioned.
We heard there was a conflict, timing conflict. Okay, does anyone from the commission have a question for staff? Vice Chair Kirsch.
The reason that option 2 appears to be less of an increase is because it's not a V-shaped sign, even though there's lettering there's a sign on both sides of it, right?
Technically, yes. So you're correct, because it's not a V-shape, regardless of what it says at the bottom. Because it's back to back, you just include the sign face area for one side technically, but also the Lucid is only 6.17 square feet, and the Bear logo, which is covered by the white car, is only 9 square feet. When you look at the internally illuminated graphic prints, the whole graphic print area is 85 square feet, in addition to the 5 square feet that says Lucid.
So I guess what I'm getting at is it's not an apples to apples comparison, right? The sign is still sides, I mean, it's very much a technicality. The signs, both signs will be relatively increase it the same, it appears to me.
Are you talking about the sign structure or the sign?
Yeah, just on
face?
the structure.
Face. I believe the Commissioner's, Vice Chair Kirsch is referring to the sign face. So if you take out of the equation that it's 2 signs, but it's a V as opposed to back, what is one sign face of this V-shaped one versus the one sign face of the other one? Is that correct? That's what you're trying to compare?
I think we still see whether it's V-shaped or it's just a flat sign, that it still has 2 sides to it.
Correct.
So I guess that's the question.
So the area comparison then you're looking to see is just one side of this and then the other side.
So 85 square feet for the V-shaped, 15.71 square feet.
Okay.
That
For
answers
the-
that question.
Not illuminated graphic print option.
And is this set up to have like a car on either side of the sign?
Just one
Just one
side,
side.
as you can see in the other picture of the top-down view, there is a 12 by 22 platform located on the north side of this proposed structure.
Okay. Are there any variations to our code coming with either of these sign options?
Just allowing 2 additional wall signs beyond what is permitted.
Okay.
Due to there being 3 wall signs for this tenant space on the east facade.
Okay.
The walls, the proposed ground sign structure height is permitted to be 18 feet due to a provision in the sign code. Sorry, I'm flipping really fast. It's in here somewhere, but it allows
Yes,
to exceed the 15-foot minimum to 18 feet.
right, because
So-
of where it's located and the
On
zoning
US 41.
district it's in.
Correct. Section 150.205, subsection HI.
Okay, does the commission have any more questions for staff? Does the applicant wish to speak, or are they okay with things presented as they are?
Are you able to pull up the PDF? Carl?
Yes, thanks for asking for it.
Good evening, Chair Moore, members of the Plan and Design Commission. My name is Seth King. I'm Managing Counsel for Global Zoning, Land Use and Licensing for Lucid Motors. Thank you for the opportunity to address you again on this matter. Is there a... Oh, it's right here.
So just try to use, that one you can't see it anymore because it's been pushed too many times, but those are the
Okay,
answers. Thank you.
thank you. I think Planner Coleman did a great job of summarizing the status of things and the proposals. I'm not going to go through it all in great detail, but I did want to just make a few comments and cover a couple of slides and then answer any questions that you might have for the applicant side. And most of these slides that I have here were included with a letter and were all part of the packet that you have. There are a couple here that are different. As noted, we are presenting 2 possible ground sign options here. One is what we're calling the graphic ground sign that you all saw before. This is a rendering of it there from the highway. This is going southbound. And you had asked at the last meeting if we had any instances where we had used this kind of a sign before. The answer is yes, and this is an example of that. This is an actual photograph, not a rendering, but a photograph of this type of graphic sign that we have used at our sales service and delivery center in Torrance, California. This is a daytime image, and here you have two nighttime images. This one is technically a wall sign, not a ground sign, just because it's flush with the building. But otherwise, this is the type of sign that we would plan to locate here if the graphic sign were approved at this location. Just to kind of paint the scene for what Torrance is a suburb of Los Angeles. It is, the location here is on Hawthorne Boulevard, which you can see from the photo. There are 4 lanes in each direction. It's a high traffic corridor. I think the speed is 45 miles per hour in each direction. So in a lot of ways, it has similar context to what the Highland Park location would be on Old Skokie Valley Road. It's a suburban location outside a big city, high traffic corridor, generally low-rise commercial buildings around. So the context is similar. What I can tell you is different about this graphic sign is it is much larger actually than the one we were proposing for Highland Park. This one is about 115 square feet just for the graphic portion. And as noted, I think we're at 85 square feet for the graphic portion that we're proposing here. But I think as you can see here, it fits well with the Lucid image. It is, I think, a nice high-class presentation. It is not too bright. It is we have not received any complaints about it at this location. And, we've been pleased with it and are hoping to roll out more of these across the country. So, and again, that is our, I think just a final couple comments on the graphic sign. That is Lucid's preferred option and the one that we're hopeful that you would approve. We think it is, as noted, just a nice, modern, appropriate addition here. We think that, again, it would not adversely affect any of the neighbors or would not generate excessive light. So we're hopeful that you would find that it would be appropriate to approve here. But as noted, we did consider the comments and questions that you raised at the previous hearing and wanted to present you with another option. This option is what we're calling the alternative ground sign. It does not have a graphic element to it. It is in the same location. As noted, it's a back-to-back sign instead of V-shape. It is 2 feet wider, and that's primarily for aspect ratio with the Lucid logo. It fits better on a size of this sign. But really the three elements here, you've got the Lucid letters at the top. Those are internally lit. You've got the Bear logo at the bottom that is not illuminated. And then you have the addition of the vehicle display pad. And that is flush with the parking area. It's not raised up. We are proposing to install an uplight of the car. So it would, and this is a rendering of what that would look like at night. There, you can see the Lucid letters and you can see the uplighting of the car. It's really, I think we're trying for more of a glow here. It's not like some big spotlight shining up to the heavens or anything. So that is what we're proposing there. And again, I think the goal here was, as noted by staff, if we're not able to show a graphic image of the car, it's to show the actual car itself. And we can move the car, put different vehicles here, or even go without a vehicle at all, in which case then you'd see the Bear that's currently hidden by the car there. And there are some of the other, you see this is the Audi dealer up the road, and they also have a similar sort of ground sign with a display vehicle next to it. We didn't go with the sort of profile view of the car with our display for a couple of reasons. One, we have a very limited space that we're working with there that's still on our property. And so sort of, having the car, facing the road was something that fit better. We also, a disadvantage we saw to having it at the profile side is that one direction of traffic is always going to see the back of the car. And we wanted everybody to be able to see the front of the car. So that's why we have that there. And this was just to show, some of the other ground signs in the area. That Honda, obviously that's going to be much larger sign area that they're showing there. I think the Porsche sign back here also is, the sign area is much larger than what we would be proposing. So I think that kind of summarizes it from the applicant standpoint as far as the ground sign options. We're very hopeful and would respectfully request that you all approve the application with one of the ground sign options. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Anyone from the commission have a question? Vice Chair Kirch.
So just to be clear, this is a static sign. It doesn't pulse, it doesn't flash, it's not a slideshow, doesn't go up and down, doesn't do anything. It just sits there, right?
Neither of the ground sign options will be.
I'm concerned about your choice is option one.
That's correct. It is a static sign. In order for the graphic to change, someone would have to physically go out there and get into the mechanics of the sign. Pull out the old graphic, put the new graphic in, close it back up, it does not, it cannot move on otherwise. And it does, yes, it does not pulse, it does not,
Shift.
it doesn't sing, it doesn't do anything.
So it's not likely to be very distracting, correct?
We would not see it as distracting. We've not, the experience in Torrance has been that sign has not been distracting.
Thank you.
Okay, then I would ask if we were doing option 2 and we're going to light the car, there would be certain rules, correct? Or certain standards we have in town for doing up lights and down lights and the color temperature of it. And then, we would have to, I would believe we would need to follow those rules. Is that correct, Carl?
No, I'm sorry, what's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. So if we're lighting the car, as in this picture here, I'm assuming we would need to have the same standards apply to that light as we do to any other lights in town. Like the color temperature, it's uplighting, it's bug rating,
Right,
et
I see
cetera.
that. So, yeah, what is the lighting I guess I would ask the commission, what is the lighting that's proposed for that? Is it uplight or what is that?
Yes, it is an uplight.
Okay, so there has to be some type of variation for an uplight on that. That was my comment, that if the applicant wanted to proceed with that, there'd have to be some type of variation to allow the uplighting.
Okay, but we can't approve that yet because we don't know what would be presented yet. We don't know what the lighting situation is.
Was that information presented, Zubin, do you know?
No, I don't think you included what kind of lighting would be going in there. And I'm just pointing out that in the past, when we talked about lighting at night, whether it be for a car dealership or on a sign outside the building, that there's, standards we have to follow. Correct?
There was no illumination plan.
Okay.
Submitted.
But that would have to come if we were to do option 2. Is this correct? Okay.
We need that information, correct.
Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? All right, so commission, I guess it is upon us. I believe we have, in our previous discussions, we were okay with the number of signs and the location of the signs. It was just this particular ground sign that was a sticking issue for some of us. So do we have opinions? Do we like one better than the other?
I like the first option.
Okay.
I mean, I was actually okay with the graphic sign, so.
Okay.
I'm fine with option 1. I like option 2 too with the car, but
Yeah, it looks
if their
fun.
first preference is option 1 with the first ground sign, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I would agree with Mr. Fetter. Frankly, if it's, as was represented, that it's static, the concern that I think the commission put forth at the last meeting was that there were concerns about safety and distraction of the sign. Frankly, I don't see the second sign being any less distracting, number one. And it also complicates the process because we'd have to go back, not that that's our problem.
Right.
But we'd have to go back and the applicant would have to come in with meeting the lighting, whatever lighting requirements we might have. I just don't see the first sign, which is their option 1, as being distracting, frankly, any more than anything else we have along 41, frankly.
I agreed with all that, and also that we have not been, we've been pretty lenient about letting these dealerships have their branding, and this is, I don't think we should be dictating that.
Yeah. More comments to the right? Anybody? Are we okay with?
I'll add, if I had a car dealership, I would probably prefer option 2, but I
Okay.
have no problem with the first option fundamentally though.
Okay. Commissioner Nanis, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the second, or the first option, pardon me, and I personally think it'd be, given that there's no similar signs like that in the city, I would sort of punt to the council to see if this is something that they would want to see more of in the city, than anything else, and let them dictate from a policy perspective of these types of signs is what they want to see moving forward, and then from there, if they're okay with it, then I'm okay with it, but I personally would prefer the second option of the two, and I just, going up and down 41 in any of the other suburbs, there aren't any other signs like this, and
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about what the future may hold without
Okay.
further direction from the
Right,
council.
right, and that maybe our sign code needs to be updated to include this kind of sign in the future.
Or exclude, depending on.
Or exclude. But be aware, our sign code needs to be aware that this kind of sign exists and needs to call out if they are interested in it or not. Any more comments?
My opinion is I like the second sign a lot more than the first. I think the first one looks like a billboard. And I just don't find it very appealing. I would go with the second one. I do think it's a little bit distracting to have that like small text on an image when people are driving at a high speed.
Yeah,
It's just my personal opinion, but I respect what everybody else has said as well.
and while I understand that, we're calling the environment in Torrance a similar environment, it's not really, this is a divided highway where people are going 70 or more. So it's,
41 is 50.
55.
that's
the speed limit,
That's the
then
speed
no.
limit, that's what they're doing.
Now, we have to assume they're going to the speed limit.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't we need public comment? Chair, do you think there is anybody in the audience who wants to opine on this?
I will ask. Since we last met, I'm more in favor of option one than I had been. Although option two, I think is very classy. I think the lit up car that looks like it's about to pull into traffic concerns me a little bit.
That could be distracting.
That could be distracting. All right, well, let's see. Does anyone from the public have any comments on this? Anybody live nearby? Comment? Okay. So it is now up to us to decide on something and potentially send it on to city. Does this even go to city council? No, this is,
This is
You
a
have-
sign package amendment.
Right, so it doesn't-
The commission has authority over sign package amendment.
lucky us. Okay. So would somebody like to make a motion?
So if I may. Madam
Yes, you may.
Chair, I would move that we approve the sign package amendment, design review and variations from the city code for 1200 Old Skokie Road with the signage as option number one as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Fettner. All right, please call the vote.
Commissioner Incheck,
No.
Commissioner Fettner,
Yes.
Commissioner Nanis,
Nay.
Commissioner Henry,
Aye.
Commissioner Mantis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kirsch,
Aye.
Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it by a vote of 5-2. The motion carries and this item is approved.
All right, thank you, everybody, for your patience with that one. Okay,
Chair,
yes.
maybe Director Fontaine could explain one more time the process, because would council have a chance to?
No. This is within the purview of the commission in terms of the size. That's the variation is the size. It is not an
size.
LED motion sign.
But
It
the
is not. It's a
design
static
of
sign.
it, we would not have a chance.
Not in this case, no.
But perhaps a note you might wish to take back to city council is that if this is going to be an issue for the city, maybe it needs to be somehow included in the sign code and you guys can update the sign code.
It is in the sign code, and it's
Okay.
just another form of content. There's nothing, it is not an electronic LED sign,
Right.
correct? So, no, then that is already in the sign code as well, and so
Okay.
this is just a container. It contains content. That content
this
looks like a
is-
picture. That's what that
There will
is.
be no option to consider option two. I mean, no opportunity to consider that's done.
They did tonight, the PDC
I was
did.
asking for city council.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Public hearing, PUD-2025-00056 for a special use permit in the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final plan development, final plat of re-subdivision and design review with modification from city code for a 4 townhome residential unit development at 932 Deerfield Road and 942 Deerfield Road. This has been to us before, and I believe there are some updates.
Okay, yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the city of Highland Park. So this is a brief update for the plan development, the PUD and the plat of re-subdivision design review for 932, 942 Deerfield Road. It's a proposal for a 4-unit townhome development. There's 3 stories with attached 2-car garages, shares a single drive aisle off of Deerfield Road. So none of that's changed. This has been to the commission twice, both in September. I believe the 2nd and 16th in September. So the changes, so the applicant submitted new renderings that better depict the proposed landscaping. So that's the landscaping that was already proposed, so there were no changes to the landscaping plan. What changed is the applicant submitted a new 6-page rendering that better identifies the landscaping. So the applicant states on enlarging windows, this is what they stated, we cannot expand the windows that much because of EPA requirements for insulation. We found this out after discussing it with the architect. That's what the applicant stated. And so their renderings, I think I just have the front and the back. So the one on the left is from September 16th. The one from October 21st is the updated one. And those are in the packet where you can obviously zoom in better. And so the commission may recall on September 16th, paraphrasing, the commission asked the applicant to look at, additional architectural or landscaping features to bring interest to the north facade that faces the street. And among those options the applicant could consider, the commission emphasized looking at enlarging the windows. And that is the applicant's response. As to that, I'll let the applicant speak further if they want to discuss that. I did discuss it with the building division, and it's always a complicated answer when you talk about codes. Nothing's ever, seems it's not always black and white and gray, but the long story is that you can change windows, but then you might have to change more to the building. Yeah, that's my understanding.
The bottom line is that staff's opinion is not, we do not agree that they are precluded from changing the size of the windows on this facade based on the Illinois State Conservation Code, Energy Conservation Code. Okay, that's, the EPA reference here is not relevant. It's the Illinois State Conservation Code. And so my office does administer that code. And our senior plans examiner, Horatio Wolf, had consulted with Carl about this, and no. So the windows could be expanded or changed. Does it have implications on building envelope and different types of elements of the building code? Sure, but is it able to be done? Yes. I mean, houses have windows, and so too does this home, and one wall of this home is going to be abutting another wall, right, with no windows, right? So what I could say is that staff do not share the opinion that this cannot be designed to meet the building code with larger windows.
That is the staff update. I can take questions if there are any.
Does anyone from the commission have a question or a comment for staff? Was it mentioned that samples would be brought, or were they brought at the last meeting?
I don't recall. No.
They were brought previously, okay.
Senior planner Coleman states they were brought at the last meeting.
All right.
I'll just state that into the microphone.
All right, does the applicant have any more to share with us?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for just touch on like the comments regarding the insulation. Forgive me, this isn't exactly my strong suit, but.
Can you just state your name real quick? I'm
Sure,
sorry.
Alex Malecki. We have a max UA, however that's determined, of 746, and our current UA is at 711. And that's included in those plans is basically, within those calculations are windows that have a U factor of between 0.17 to 0.21, which is about as good as windows currently available are. So basically we don't want to enlarge them because the issue is essentially if we enlarge them a little bit, they look goofy. So in order to make it look consistent and good from the inside of the building, we would have to enlarge them a lot. And we would essentially be too close to violating those UA. Again, I'm sorry, this isn't my area of expertise. But yeah, so essentially we're approximately 4% above code with whatever it is it measures in terms of like energy transmittance and things like that. So that essentially precluded us from wanting to go in that direction.
Was there any thought to like adding some kind of architecture detail around or under the windows to make them look a little bigger, even if you're not making the windows actually bigger?
Essentially, we considered and are considering paneling of sorts. We can't really extend out too much further to the front if we wanted to do something like extend out the building maybe like a foot, just because we are against that front setback. So yeah, we looked at it and basically we're most confident in this design.
Okay, do we have any more questions for the applicant? Commissioner Nanis?
Just confirming, in the renderings are omitting all the trees, is that correct?
Yes, the ones on the right are including everything, yes.
Well, because it looks like there's like there's trees that look to be missing in the rendering from the landscape plan. Unless I'm reading it wrong. These two trees and these three trees.
What page?
I can't, and the ones in the back are definitely not.
124 is the landscape plan.
Thank you.
Can you pull up the landscape plan?
Yes, sir. Give me one moment here. I will do that.
All right, so I think what's,
Because it looks like there's like 3 trees in the back and 2 in the front.
page 124 is what we're looking at.
So
Yeah,
this is
that one, that,
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, that tree you circled, the one to the right of it, and then the 3 in the bottom.
Oh, down here?
Yeah, I just want to know if they're illustrated in the renderings.
I guess they might not be in that case. I must have missed that and our renderer must have missed that. Maybe it was something that it would just block the whole building. So I'm not sure actually about that.
Sorry, I'm trying to put them side by side. So that one there, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That one in the center. And then on the back side, there's 3.
You know, for the backside, I think it'd be nice to get that rendering because the neighbors in the back have been curious to what their view might be and to understand in a better picture with how it would be coming across would be appreciative to them and to us.
Right. On the backside, I concur that the immediate strip, the 3 + 3 + 4 + 1, that's the 3 + 3 + 4 + 1, but you're right on those.
Yeah.
Those three. And then on the front, right, it has the bushes in the front, then the 3, the 2 and the 4 and the 2, so right, it's possibly these two, for sure, the one in the middle.
Okay, do we have any more questions for the applicant?
That's right.
So I guess
I
that
was
begs
just-
the
oh,
question
sorry.
though, are those existing trees or are those gonna be planted, do you know?
All of those are new.
Okay.
And do we know how tall they're gonna be when they're planted?
The install height here indicates, I believe, 6 feet for the service berry.
So when the chair, may I?
Yes, Councilmember Ross has a comment or a question.
So when those are new, new landscape, so when it grows, I mean, it's the mature height, I'm not sure what the mature height would be, but I'm asking.
Right, and how long it will take to get to
The
the
applicant.
mature height, that's
Yeah.
always the
Can we zoom in on
concern.
that?
Oh, I think that's caliper size though. So
Yeah, I think it's.
the trees here are 3 inches at caliper. So when they're installed, they either go in by height in feet or caliper. And, oh, sorry. did you-
Bushes and shrubs are like height and feet, right, and then caliper size for trees, yep.
Yeah,
3 inches, yeah.
And what-
So what is the question to the applicant then would be what's the height of these proposed trees at maturity? Do you know?
I don't know, no.
Oh, sorry, did you want me back in there?
In the mean, I have a question, maybe to corporate counsel, actually. If we approve this, can we mandate the type of trees, type of landscaping that goes in there to guarantee that it's at a height that I think we feel comfortable with?
Well, I guess you can add a condition to the planned development. It kind of depends on how confident you are in determining the kind of trees achieving the height that you want. And certainly we can, wordsmith that so that if you want a specific height, if you wanted them to achieve a specific height by a specific time, we can find a way to do that. What I would ask is that you have some specificity as to what you're looking for in terms of tree growth and the time to achieve that.
And just to add to what Corporation Counsel is saying, I would focus on height, on initial install size, and then overall height at maturity. The rate at which a tree grows, I would stay out of that. I don't, I would just not do that. Yeah, that's like really hard to enforce.
I mean, I remember at the last meeting, we talked about, that area and, the statement was there's gonna be, some landscaping and trees there just wasn't shown. I felt a lot better with that, but I think we need, at least I need some comfort level, what trees those are gonna be, what height they're supposed to mature to. Just because I think that's the way I would be okay with that elevation.
So you could specify, that you want a certain caliper size upon install, and you can indicate in the recommendation, what the overall height you'd like to see and have a tree be that. So what you might want to do is, because we don't know the exact height based on the caliper size, you might just want to say, look, we want a caliper size such that the height at install is 12 feet or 14 feet. Because I can't tell you what the caliper size conversion to initial height is. Okay, so that would be how I'd address that. And then with an overall height at maturity of Y. So then those two heights can be used in your recommendation to council, and between your recommendation and council's consideration, we work with our forester and we figure out what makes sense to recommend. That would be respectfully my recommendation, as opposed to trying to figure it out right here tonight.
I agree. I'm not figuring out tree sizes tonight.
Because we can't advise you further than that right now.
Okay, Commissioner.
But it still gets to the issue, right?
Yeah,
It just-
absolutely.
Right.
And, just in thinking about kind of, there's two aspects to this, right? There's what does this look like from the road, and then what does it look like from the sidewalk? So if you're talking about trees, that's gonna obviously impact what the property looks like from the road, but from the sidewalk, you're still gonna have a big brick wall that you're looking at based on the boxwoods. I would rather see something like, I don't know if an arborvitae or something, but something that is taller in nature that gets up to where the gray part jaunts out is probably more aesthetically appealing to me than having short boxwoods there.
Can we put on the elevation again? It shows, because maybe petitioner can answer the question of what height. Do you know on that picture on the left hand, I guess the easiest one to look at, do you know what height that is from grade?
The brick to the siding.
Yeah, the brick to the siding.
I could check really quick for you.
So I think that would answer our question.
That height from the ground here, you said to the,
Yes.
where the materials change, right?
Yeah.
So that height is approximately 10.33 feet. I based that off the elevation plan in the packet, 10.33 feet.
Okay, Commissioner Incheck had a question or a comment.
Yeah, I have a comment about the rear screening, which I think is where we started this conversation with the neighbors' concerns about the rear of the property. And it looks like from the landscape plan, there's 3 proposed trees in that rear yard space. They're all ginkgos. And my Google tells me that those can reach a height of 50 to 80 feet at maturity. So I don't know, I'm hesitant for us to specify the caliper size. That can really increase the price of the trees as well as if you get more mature trees. But maybe just if we can identify what height we think we would be comfortable with, so that they can check with the arborist and make sure, or the forester, and make sure that we're within the range of what we'd like to see for those plantings. I think it might be a lot of to do about nothing for this landscape plan if we just check with the forester and see what those heights might look like.
Right, and just as just addition to that, if you, from what I've learned with trees is sometimes planting a tree of a larger caliper, they have less survival rate and take longer to thrive and then grow on their own thereafter. That's just, layperson's understanding of what I've gathered over the years about these things. So, it's not necessarily great to have the largest caliper size possible in certain types of plantings. That's all, upon install.
Am I correct in this? The renderings don't have any meaning in terms of the development agreement, that the landscape, they have to adhere to the landscape plan
Yes.
regardless of what this shows, and the landscape plan shows a lot more than is on these renderings.
Yes, that's
The
right.
table, yes. They'll
Yes,
have to do by the schedule.
Yes, this is the enforceable document for landscaping. Right.
And so they'll have to install at the heights or the caliper sizes shown in the table and in the quantity shown as well. And so that will all be part of whatever approval should come.
Is there a concern for the ginkgos as being male or female trees? Because I think one of them tends to smell really bad in the summertime, or the fall, or the spring.
Might want to include in your recommendation that you'd seek more advice from the forester
Okay.
as part of this. I mean, without having to pick the trees, unless you want to come back to another, public hearing on the matter.
Right.
That's entirely up to the commission. And we can consult with the arbor.
Well, a stinky tree would distract people from the monotony of the north
It would
face.
be,
10
it'd be different.
To walk past it.
It would be different.
Okay.
That's for sure. They are tough trees, that's true.
Okay, do you have any more questions for the applicant or for staff? All right, is anyone from the public here to speak on this matter? All right, please come on up. I think you've been sworn in previously, is this true?
Susan Bell.
Okay, did we swear you in previously?
You did, yes,
Okay.
the last time.
So Susan Bell, you say?
Yes.
Okay, can you spell
I
your
just-
last name for our minute?
Bell.
Okay.
I just want to thank the commission for paying attention to the landscape plan. That is what we are very concerned about, particularly for us for the rear facing, since that's the building that is abutting that. So I do appreciate everybody talking about the height of the trees at install. I understand we're not going to install 25-foot trees, but 6 feet is a little small, unless they're fast-growing trees. I couldn't tell from that which tree was going to be in which place. And I know they're going to cut down a very large crabapple that blocks a lot now, and that's about at least a 20 or 25-foot tree, because I looked at it today. And it's going to come down, so it would be good if we have something, but I appreciate you paying attention. Also to the front of it, which looks a little warehousey at the moment, so I appreciate you wanting to put larger trees in the front for that 10-foot height, at least ones that'll grow relatively quickly. We understand 10-foot trees maybe to install might be a little tall, but it would be good, because we don't look at the front, but we drive by the front every day, and it does look a little warehousey to us. So thank you so much for your attention to all this detail. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Chair, can I I'd like to make one comment for the record. So on the plant schedule for the deciduous trees and the ornamental trees, their install measurements are one of two. They're either 3 caliper inches, which is what 4 of the 5 species are, and one of them, the service berry, is 6 feet. So I just want to point out the 3-inch caliper that complies with the code requirement, that 6 feet does not. That's going to need to be amended to 8 feet or 3-inch caliper to be code compliant. I just want to point that out.
Okay. So I guess we would be looking for a motion to adopt findings of fact, and if you don't want to do that,
So, Madam Chair, if I may,
yes.
I would move that we adopt the findings of fact, recommending approval for a special use permit in the nature of a concurrent preliminary and final plan development, final plat of re-subdivision and design review with modifications from city code for a 4-story townhome residential unit development at 932 Deerfield Road and 942 Deerfield Road, 932 Deerfield Road and 942 Deerfield Road, with the conditions that the landscaping plan must comply with city code and that the developer must consult with the city forester on the final landscape plan.
And I'm just gonna add a little modification, it's a 4 townhome.
4
not 4
townhomes.
stories. Oops, whole other. Okay, so we have a, motion on the table. Do we have a second for this?
I'll second.
Okay, so, we have a second by Commissioner Fettner. Any more discussion amongst the commission on this?
So if I can ask, so is the intention with the motion then to take into account the feedback on landscaping that we provided tonight? And give that to the forester to make recommendations accordingly?
Carl, how does that work? Would the forester get the notes from the meeting?
Yeah.
Well, right. So we would provide, I would provide the notes to the forester on the meeting, the concerns, and then, the applicant should discuss those with the forester, and the forester should make a recommendation, and then, the applicant should incorporate that recommendation to the extent they can and choose. And that information, all this information, is going to be relayed to the city council when it goes to them. Like, hey, this is what happened. This is what was said. This is what the commission desired. This is what the applicant's response was, or their changes, et cetera, based on that.
So by that time, the forester should have some recommendations of the type of trees that would grow tall enough that would kind of serve the purpose, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be in the commission's recommendation to the city council, and yes, the forester would be alerted of that before it gets there, so that we have some feedback for that specifically for council to consider.
Commissioner Inchuck had a last comment.
Yeah, I don't feel like we talked a lot about the building envelope and the windows modifications that didn't really change from the previous requests from the commission. And it sounds from Director Fontaine's comment that the conservation code doesn't necessarily align with what the applicant is saying in terms of what can be accommodated for the windows in the building insulation. So I don't feel like we've come to any conclusion on that as a group, and I'm not really comfortable with where we're at right now with advancing it.
Okay. Any comments on that from the commission?
I wouldn't disagree with Commissioner Inchuk. Basically, that was something we discussed at great length at prior meetings about trying to do something that was more, because the sides face
the street
central.
Right.
And it does have a somewhat industrial look to it, in my estimation, as I said at the last meeting. It's troubling to me that there can't be something more extensive done in terms of, and landscaping, I think, will help that, although it's 10 feet, but it just has an industrial look to it. And, I'm just not sure that's what we're looking for.
I agree that the landscaping will help, certainly the lower half of the building, and once we get some trees, they'll kind of soften the edges, but it doesn't fix all the solid blue on there. And I don't know if there's like a way to put up some kind of design underneath the window. I don't know.
So just, these sideways town projects are always going to have this problem, and I don't know how many of them around the city. This is not the worst example that we have, and I mean, two big trees are supposed to be in front of this, and, they're shown on the landscaping plan, and they're not shown here on the renderings, and, well, 3 in the back and 2 in front, and they're not shown, and so, I think that can skew our perspective, but again, I just think that we're getting a little nitpicky in given the constraints of this kind of site development.
I agree. I get that some of the constraint on the windows is inside when you're trying to have those walls be part of a kitchen or a bedroom or a bathroom. They can't be all that big, which I think is really the real problem.
I think petitioner explained it last time to a level that I felt, I was okay with. Again, the trees, for me, what's gonna make the difference too.
Yeah.
And the aesthetic appeal of it. And I understand, I think he pointed out, one of the rooms was a bedroom, I think, one was the kitchen, so, I mean, it's got challenges to it, but, yeah, for me, probably won't hold up my approval.
So I will add, I think there's something to be said, and there's conflicting kind of desires. On one side, you want less windows, on the other side, we want more windows. And so from a building layout, I understand and appreciate the complications. I do think that, there's another property for townhouse development, a block east of this, that somehow figured out a way to have windows on the side facing the road. So it's not like we're asking for something that is completely impossible here. I will additionally add that there's a lot of development going on here. So I think from a overall planning standpoint, looking at design, it's important for us to kind of take into context everything that's going on there and make sure that everything fits within the context of what we're approving.
I noticed there's also a fence, and I don't see it in the renderings.
Yeah, helps.
I don't know where my fence picture went.
Additionally to the property, he was sort of mentioning like the shrubbery there's more verticality and there's more variance in perception of the height.
Yes.
Whereas the plans here, it seems that it's all very
Right, because.
on plane, so if there could be a way to add additional height to some of the shrubbery, in addition to like a renderings with the trees and understanding more of the heights there, I think that would be helpful, because I think that could help alleviate.
And not to use that property as a gold standard, but I think architecturally it's just more interesting in terms of, features and kind of setbacks within the property.
It's not a wall.
Yeah, this one, you're looking at a brick wall with some siding above it.
Right.
I mean, generally, I think it's a good idea for the site. In terms of what's being proposed, I just wish it was more attractive.
Agreed. Okay, so the fence is gonna run on three sides of the southwest and the east side of the lot. So,
That's right.
so the Deerfield Road side is not getting fence.
That's right, not the front yard on,
Yeah.
correct.
Well, I mean, after all the discussion, I'm okay with what's been presented with the discussion with the approval of the forestry. So Councilperson Ross, are we giving the city council enough feedback to help them make a decision once this goes through the forestry department?
I'm just a little confused about the process.
It's a recommendation to city council.
So it's a recommendation at this point. I mean, I think so. And appreciate the effort to, around the landscaping and the trees. I think they're somewhat limited on the interior. I mean, they do need wall space. You just do for hanging things. And when you look at the plan, I assume they were kind of limited there. I feel, I'm just waiting for, sorry, are you about to? Okay. I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate the effort around the landscaping and the trees. PDC did ask for maybe slightly longer windows, but I'll say yes.
Okay.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
In terms of what's going to be before the city council, the condition is going to look something like the applicant must consult with the city forester and present a plan that encompasses trees to the forester's satisfaction. And so it's not really the city council that is approving the trees. It's going to be, the city council will be relying on the forester's expertise.
Yes. Okay, so we do have a motion on the table. We have discussed it. So I think we're going to have to call the vote.
Commissioner Incheck,
Aye.
Commissioner Fatner,
Yes.
Commissioner Nanis,
Nay.
Commissioner Henry,
Aye.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Kirsch. Aye. Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion carries six.
You forgot.
Mantis, I apologize. Commissioner Mantis, my apologies.
Just in case.
Sorry, Commissioner Mantis.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion carries 6 votes to 1.
Okay.
With the conversation and discussion condition recommendation.
Condition, right? Right.
Yep.
Okay. Now, our next item is a pre-application meeting for 793 Laurel Avenue and 1696 to 1704 McGovern Street. As this is a pre-application meeting, it's not a public hearing. It's a little bit more informal than that, where we just kind of discuss ideas and give feedback to the applicant. Carl, are you going to present that to us?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
Yes, and just to be clear, this is a pre-application, which means this has not been submitted as an application for formal consideration. This is an option available to applicants in our city to talk with the commission on an informal basis about some ideas and concepts that they have. And so this is not a complete application before you. It does not contain all the information necessary for staff to review or advise, but nonetheless, it does provide you some ideas of what they're trying to do at varying degrees of detail, depending on what the person has provided us. And so I just wanted to be clear about that. This is not a public hearing, it's a public meeting. And so with that, Chair, thank you for your indulgence on that. I just wanted to clarify that for the benefit of the commission so that they understand what this is before you tonight. So there are no votes, there's just discussion to the extent that you think is appropriate and feedback to the extent that you think is appropriate.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Carl Burhop. I'm a senior planner with the Planning Division in the Community Development Department for the City of Highland Park. As previously stated, this is a pre-application meeting for the property 793 Laurel Avenue, and then the 1696-1704 McGovern Street. The proposal, the pre-application proposal is a multi-family development, multiple family. These are the properties. They are separate zoning lots. They are separated by an alleyway. One is on the corner along McGovern and Laurel. I'm sure the commission knows it's or was a church, still a church structure. And then there is the, I was raised Catholic, but I can't remember the name. Is it the parishioner, the ministers? I don't know if it was Catholic anyway, but it's the building associated with the church, and that's to the west across the alleyway. So this is a request for feedback. So this is a chance for the commission to, give feedback broadly. I'll get into that. I have a few more comments. So again, this is a pre-app, but what is envisioned by the applicant is this. So the current zoning is RM1A, and the applicant envisions asking for a rezoning to the RO, the residential office zoning. The applicant also envisions requesting PUDs, planned developments, one for each zoning lot. The one to the west, I'll call it the west, it's the 793 Laurel Avenue one, which has a strip of parking and the home on it. That is envisioned by the applicant to be a 5-story, 14-unit building with 33 on-site parking spaces. And then on the east, I'll call it the east or the corner property, it's the church building. That's envisioned to be a 5-story building, 6 stories from the back. 21-unit building with 50 on-site parking spaces. This project also envisions an easement utility relocation. The commission can certainly comment on that if the commission wants. I'll just say for that, as part of the next steps with the applicant, staff will work with the applicant to, if this moves forward, to have that further reviewed by city departments and the utility agencies. So the commission can wade into that as much as you want or not want, but we will follow up with the applicant on that. I just want to reiterate, all review contained herein is preliminary, as this is a pre-app, so of course it's not a complete application, it's a pre-application request. Applicants always ask what they should submit, we say enough, so the commission can chew on and give you sufficient feedback. So this is the neighborhood context. You know, the neighborhood at this intersection, it is kind of an interesting intersection because it's the confluence of multiple zoning districts and step downs. So, you know, you have Central here, right here. And Central, of course, is a main street. I technically don't know if it's an arterial, but it's certainly a high order road feeding traffic into downtown Highland Park, kind of a main avenue right into downtown. So you have higher zoning on that. Where's my zoning map? Shoot, I should have put it next. Here it is. So you have higher zoning on that, B4, 5, districts in the B4 that have a higher zoning, that have mixed uses, etc. And then behind it, as you come to the south, you know, part of that block, with the block that now faces south along Laurel, you have RM1A, and then you also have this, which was rezoned RO, I believe back in 2015. These are 4-story buildings in the RO right there. And so you have kind of a step down in zoning. And then as you go across the street, you have another step down. And I know the commission knows about the property directly across. That was just here this spring and summer, the Laurel Park development. That stepped down. It's now down to the RM1, which has a, I believe it's a 3-story, 35 feet height limit. And so it's really, it's an interesting intersection, and how you have this different zoning. And I took these images from Google to try to just provide some context here. So this is looking due west. And so the subject property would be like, not right here on the right, but as you go just a little ways down, the subject property is on the right, and the Laurel Park development would be on the left here, and this is McGovern Street here. So this is, you're heading west. And so an important feature here, as the commission may recall, this is actually the top of the hill, right? This is kind of the crown of the hill. And so this is the intersection of Laurel and McGovern, and that's the church. And again, that actually kind of, actually I'm glad I occasionally I grab the images. So that shows you the larger building here, which I believe is 5 stories along that facade, but along Central is 6, because there's elevation there as well. And so again, the project would be to demolish the church building, right, and build it would be 5 stories from here. By the way, I did check, the church building is not historically landmarked. I did have a historic review on that. And also the district it's in the district it's proposed to be in does not does not trigger a demo permit review either for historic review. Okay, so then this is, if you're on Laurel, looking at the already completed part of the Laurel Park Phase 1. So that gives you an idea what would be right across from the 5-story building that's proposed. Those are 3-story townhomes. And then that shows you, so this is, as you go down Laurel, you're now getting on the bottom of the hill, and you're looking up, east, eventually you get to the lake, you're looking east. And so the development here, the properties would be approximately here. And so this is zoned RO. Those are 4-story residential units. And so then I want to walk through their preliminary plans real quick. I actually don't have that much of a presentation. I'm going to open up their plans real quick and just walk through them. So what the commission should consider though, height relief, okay? So the applicant is asking for height relief. They're within the density allowance. They're within the parking requirements. Their preliminary plans indicate they comply with those. So height relief and how that matches or doesn't match the neighborhood. Then the lot coverage request. The maximum limit for this district is 33.3%. And they are proposing that 59% and change. So that's something in, and again, the commission, that's a potential modification that the commission should consider and provide feedback on. And then the setbacks. There are various encroachments, but I'll go through that when I go through their plans. And then I just had a note about the western parcel being undersized. The landscaping is, I mean, they'll have to provide landscaping plans. That's more as an FYI, just trying to do advanced review so that if this moves forward, applicants know what the expectations will be. So let me just go through their plans really quick. Okay, so this would be the 793 Laurel. This is the applicant's submission. This was the packet included. Here the applicant has an exhibit about height in the neighborhood. These are applicant's photos. Shows the site, the zoning, the current zoning. This is just an exhibit about the easement that has to be relocated. It's a grade exhibit. These are applicants' photos of the site area that shows the alleyway. And then these are the site plans. Okay, so this one's for the left, the western property. So that's the footprint of the building. Now, I do want to be clear, the garage will go all the way to the back, but then there's green above. There's a terrace above the garage here. Then the residential units are within this footprint. You can see that there's balconies overhanging slightly closer to the setback, but the building has a 10-foot setback. So there's parking on the first floor with additional guest parking on the surface in the back here. And then this is their unit layout. The only thing I'll point out is just, again, there's an amenity terrace here on top of the first floor garage. Again, the unit layout. And then, so this is the elevation. So it's 5 stories. So the applicant does incorporate a setback, a step back. And step backs are required in the PUD section of code. This facade would be from the street. This is the street-facing facade. Yes, the south elevation. This is the facade that faces the alleyway. They show the garage entrance there. And then, like I said, you can see that the first floor is like that. And then they propose a terrace here above. And then, again, the units. And then this shows how the balconies come out and then the step back. That's the north elevation. You'd only see that if you're from the alleyway in the interior. And then this is the west elevation facing the residential home on the west side. And that shows the step back. And then that's their zoning table. Are there any questions or comments about that before I proceed to the corner lot? And again, I just want to reiterate the zoning. So this review assumes the RO zoning. It's not a staff recommendation, but again, I just want to reiterate this would be the limits if it was rezoned to RO. So the maximum zoning height limit is 51 feet and 4 stories. And again, they would be proposing 5 stories and 61.33 feet for the 793 Laurel Avenue site. And then the 63 feet and the 5 stories for the corner lot. But remember, 6 stories from the back side. These first few are the same as the other one, or approximately the same. Okay, so this is the one on the right, the corner lot. Okay, so you can see there's some green space at ground level around the site on the west. That's technically a rear yard on the north. It's because it's a corner lot that abuts a corner lot. You know, the side yard designation can get wonky when you have a corner lot and it abuts another corner lot. This is the first floor, ground floor parking. Again, it would comply with the parking. We have the loading lane and the unloading space here, and then you have the access off the alleyway. Of course, the city does encourage, it's good practice to locate access off of the alleyways. Reduce your curb cuts along the street. So it's general layout of the first floor, second floor, third floor. And I think one of them is duplicative actually, and then the top floor. This is the photos the applicant provided. I believe these are meant to be their design inspiration images. So then this is the south elevation. So again, this is the corner property on the top of the hill. And so this is that would face south on Laurel Avenue. And so from there, I mean, it's 5 stories with elements of the 6th, because this bottom one is the garage, and it shows you the step backs they're proposing. Balconies. Oops, sorry, so this is the east, this is facing the McGovern. I guess they also gave, I just kind of noticed this now, actually, they gave the McGovern house along the right here. Now remember, that's the corner property that's along Central, and it's in a different zoning district. It's in one of the B4 zoning districts. This is the north elevation, and then this is the west elevation, which faces the alleyway, shows the garage entrance, the garage door entrance right there. And then this is their kind of the cross section that shows the step backs that are proposed, which of course are encouraged and are also required by the PUD code. This is their zoning table. So this is preliminary, it's a pre-app. And again, staff would just, want the commission to key in on, context in the neighborhood, the transitioning in the zoning, the step down in heights from that along Central to that along Laurel, and then as you cross south into the RM1, and the height relief they're asking, as well as the coverage relief. And then the only other thing I have to say, and I don't have it in my presentation, but I did include, again, Public Works preliminary comments. I also included, we had our housing planner provide inclusionary zoning comments. I know this is not the Housing Commission, but we included that in the packet for the commission to see, as well as the applicant's team. That's all, that's my presentation. I can take questions if there's any.
Commissioner Henry.
Carl, is moving utilities a public benefit?
I would think no.
No, the movement of these utilities is costly, that is for sure. But, it's gonna need to happen to enable the use of the property the way they're describing, so.
Well, that's why
It's not a public, yeah, right.
Well, and I thought, like, most of our PUDs require one to put the electricals underground now.
That's correct.
All right, Commissioner Inchick has a question.
I have a question about the rezoning that is requested. It's currently zoned RM1A. They want to rezone to R0? RO? Thank you.
Letter O, office.
Thanks. But they're still going to need pretty substantial relief from that zoning district's requirements. So I'm just curious the rationale for that zoning district, or if there's another that would make less of a impact in terms of the relief they're requesting.
So what I would say is, it's not the zoning district suggested, it's the relief requested on top of that, that's the issue. So the zoning had been changed for 2 buildings, as you can see there in the teens, to RO. So the use of RO zoning, had been previously approved for multifamily buildings in this area. And, I would suggest from a staff perspective that the commission look at this area from the vantage point of Laurel Avenue. I know there were a lot of other buildings shown there. Those are in different zoning districts, much more intense than the most intense zoning districts in our city. And although there is a intense development there to the north of McGovern House, that's in a different zoning district. And so, when considering this matter, consider that. The appropriate context or focus, staff would argue, is Laurel Avenue, not Albion 1, not Park Sheridan, not McGovern House. Notwithstanding McGovern House right being behind it, yes, but in terms of, and that's fine, I mean, you have to draw a line somewhere, you know what I'm saying? So you could use that argument to say McGovern Houses can continue on all the way south, you know what I mean? Because each time there's enough. So what past development has been in this area, rezoning was to RO in the past for 2 4-story, 51-foot tall buildings that are out there now. Across the way, Laurel Park, this commission recommended, council approved, a 4-story and 53, was it, or 52, depending on, that had to do with the grade change there, across the way there. The townhomes that are already existing in Laurel Park, we talked about it. They needed relief too, evidently, that had been missed at a previous, approval 20-something years ago or whatnot. So the context there is we would suggest you got to look at that Laurel Avenue context. The buildings across the street, which are townhomes, the Mark Mueller's development down the road there, mid-block, and what's going on across the street. Some townhomes that did get some height relief and all. But that would be the context of the height I would suggest respectfully to look at, not the context along Central Avenue for this particular location. In addition, this does propose, and I know this is just preliminary and estimates right at this point, but quite significant lot coverage. We've had a lot of discussion about lot coverage in another area. This is higher lot coverage than that proposal. So, I would consider that those two things are really salient features of at least this proposal in this very concept form and informally before you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time. I appreciate it.
No problem, Commissioner Henry.
Yeah, I'm going to echo or channel my colleague, Commissioner Mantis, on this, because the only guidance this commission has is ancient by modern standards. And to your point, Director, they're asking for almost twice as much lot coverage as the code allows. They're asking for a lot of setbacks. They're asking for height. This commission has gone along with that in different zoning districts, to your point. But we're kind of not walking blind, but we're kind of walking blind here. With all due respect to Councilperson Ross here. There's just a context that we're required to try to balance the property owner's rights to develop their property and do what they foresee doing, what they envision doing, with the rights of the city to control development in a certain way, and because they want to create a certain environment. That becomes more and more difficult as we go into these areas where developers come in and say, we understand that code allows us to cover 33%. We want 59% or somewhere in that vicinity. The code requires a 25-foot setback. We want 20 feet of relief on that. It's just troubling to me. Look, we're up to the task and we'll deal with it. But I find it troubling, and it's creeping along, and this has been Commissioner Mantis's position for a while, and I'm inclined to agree with him. It's troubling.
Well, and I look at it, and I just look at this block here, and it's been all piecemealed up into zoning districts. Just because one person wants, certain variations, now we're gonna make that lot RO, but we've got it's sandwiched in between RM1. We can't zone in a piecemeal manner like this. And if we continue to do that, then it's going to be very hard for this board to hold the line somewhere else. And that's where I have a problem with it. You know, are we just picking the zoning that allows the least amount of variations requested by the applicant is what it looks like to me. So. Commissioner Mantis.
I will add to that.
Please do.
Y'all stole my thunder, but,
We're listening to you.
That's great. I'm changing hearts and minds. No, I think that it's great to see things being proposed to be built. That's what gets me excited, and that's why I wanted to be part of this. I think one of the big things, though, is to Director Fontaine's point, looking at the context of a neighborhood and kind of making judgment calls accordingly. But I think we also have to take opportunities to think about, well, what's next, right? And so to Chair Moore's point, there's going to be an RM1A property sandwiched in between two RO properties. And so the question becomes, are we de facto now changing the zoning to RO there? Or are we rendering that property somewhat constrained in terms of what can actually be built going forward, right? And I would like to see a thought process given to what's this entire district going to look like, when something this sizable gets built, and actually have a vision for what we'd like to see in a meaningful way, rather than just doing it one by one by one and hoping that it works out.
And if every building is just a little bit taller or one more story than the last one, I mean, there's got to be a limit. And I know technically there is a limit, but, it will become very quickly overwhelming, and we will lose our ability to draw a line, so to speak. Commissioner Anchuk has a comment.
I do not.
Just agreeing, okay. Or perhaps disagreeing, that's fine too.
Can I ask, because I'm still not clear, RO does what? I mean, why do we have the RO classification?
Residential office,
What's office about it?
it allows office uses,
Yeah,
they can allow office uses.
Yeah, most residential districts don't allow offices, whereas the RO allows quite a few of them.
So is our living above the store idea, or?
Can be, but it's not required necessarily to be a ground floor.
So the advantage to the petitioner of RO over RM1 is height and density added?
Right, right.
Essentially.
The density and height, they are well within their density, but you're right. The RO is also the most dense of the multifamily residential districts in terms of height allowance and density allowance.
Does RO specify a ratio between office and residential?
No.
It just says you can do either one.
Yeah, that's correct. So I just want to point out that what they're proposing doesn't match the RO district. Okay, so that's just one thing, right? It doesn't. It's significant departure from that. Okay, so the RO is separate. The RO may be appropriate, as it was rezoned previously. However, they're asking for relief above and beyond that. Okay, so that's one. Two, the parcel of land that contains a single-family home at this point between the RO district that is there that encompasses those two buildings and this area. Yeah, that is, I agree. I mean, from the zoning point of view, we want to see that the rest of that block be changed to RO, including that parcel. And we had talked about this with the applicant. Now, the applicant can't do that, propose that for someone. They would have to sign on to the petition. So just know that, okay? You can only request to rezone your own land, okay? And so that's a point. But nonetheless, from a zoning point of view, yeah, I understand, and we've said that to the applicant. The development, if you look at the RM1A, I believe it's also all the way, the RM1A also goes down to Hickory and Laurel Avenue, I'm sorry, and there. Now, you may recall that that area there was developed also by Fulton developers. And then came after that, the multifamily buildings thereafter. And so that was that progression of that development along there, and it flows very well. And so if additional zoning changes need to be made, it would be best to have that entire rest of the block considered, not just, well, we're leaving out the part we don't own. And I understand that sentiment, and so I just want to resonate on that point. Having said that, I do stress that the RO has different requirements than what they're proposing, and this is significantly above that. And so, okay, so that it just want to be clear on that. Okay. In terms of the conversations, looking at the, B4, B5 and extending that, staff did not think that would be an appropriate rezoning for this Laurel Avenue strip here. So that would be the zone district that is to the north there, that includes McGovern House, that B4, B5. And so that's those are parcels fronting Central. Right. So anyway, thank you for your indulgence. I appreciate it. That's just more of our thinking on the matter, just informally here.
Do we have somewhere a chart of the differences between the RM1A and the R0?
Yes, and we certainly
So maybe
can provide
another
that.
time, come back with that.
Including maybe even the RM2 or RM1, which is across the street as well. We'll include all those should they come back.
Right.
To look at.
Commissioner Inchuk has a comment.
Another clarifying question from what you were saying, Director Fontaine, the B45, which you all determined isn't the most appropriate zoning district for this
It has a
particular
whole
stretch
host
of
of
Laurel.
uses, yeah, right.
Would this proposal meet the requirements of that zoning district?
It's more akin to that zoning district, yes. So this is a RO zoning request with a more of a B45 height and bulk kind of a situation. Yes.
Okay.
I think that's very insightful and exactly, it says it well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify on that, the B4 5 district allows 63 feet and 5 stories, and the B4 6, 75 feet and 6 stories.
Right. Again, what streets those zoning districts front on matter. I understand they're back to back, but it's a very different world in Laurel Avenue than it is on Central Avenue. And I think that's really important from just the land use perspective here.
Well, clearly, it's not going to remain a Methodist church in Parsonage House. So
That's correct. I wouldn't expect that, yeah.
I mean,
But it could, but,
given the situation that we're in, it seems that they're taking the most logical approach. And again, this is where you want your density, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I think that's where we've gotten, where we've let the setbacks and the lot coverage slide and the height requirement. We've granted all that relief because we believe in transit-oriented development and we believe in density for the downtown, which,
And that's what happened with the RO district that's there, right? Although it did meet the height requirement, 51 feet, it did for the RO. So that's an important aspect here of how these buildings present to this Laurel Avenue. So that's important.
but as you point out, as we go up the hill to Green Bay, you should get more dense and more height. I mean,
You could.
that's actually a logical zoning track, logical zoning progression, I believe, but.
Or I would view it the other way, as you leave the downtown,
Yeah.
the building should be a little bit shorter, and not as densely crowding their lots.
Yes, and so if you go from east to west here, that what Commissioner Kirsch was saying, if there was a rezoning like this, then that would be that progression down. Staff's perspective is that yes, but we do have, additional height beyond what an RO would provide. Seems intense for that corner there. When you stand out there, you look at the townhouses across the way, which also got height relief, by the way, retroactively, as we mentioned, but nonetheless, that's just our perspective on it, in terms of that. I just feel that makes sense. And this does pose a number of issues, also from a land development point of view, is we do have that alley. And so just to provide a little information about that, what about that alley? We have met about this area now for years, not this particular applicant, but multiple different types of developers have come in looking to do things. And we've have internally discussed and analyzed and looked at the need for that alley. And I will say that the city, multiple departments, Public Works, Fire, and Community Development, do not recommend any changes to that alley, meaning giving up that alley. That is too important in terms of what it serves in terms of the buildings thereby, as well as fire life safety access, as well as garbage and other types of, municipal and other services that are just needed. So I just point that out because these are they're showing as one development, but they're two different lots of record, okay? So you can't, they each have to meet the code as themselves, as lots, because that right of way in between is not owned by the proposer, okay?
But does it make sense to have developments that both front primarily on the alley?
Yes, we have no issue with that. I mean, it has to be designed properly, and there's some utilities that need to be moved around. There's a pole like kind of in part of the right of way there and stuff. That's fine. That's not my comment. My comment is just that alley needs to be there. You might say to yourself, gee whiz, if we could just get rid of that alley, we could really kind of develop this better. There are other needs for that alley that supersede just merely land development in this area, in our opinions, respectfully. That's 3 different departments. And they're not proposing anything, but I just wanted to give you that background because
No, that's
we've
good.
talked with lots of folks about this
Well, and
over
I
the years.
think in our past projects that have come to us, I think the residents prefer that any cars going to and from a development like this would use an alley and not exit and enter directly onto the street. So.
Yes, and the use of an alley is appropriate, and that's a busy one, and it is used, yes. I mean, you have, McGovern House uses that alley.
Yeah.
There's a number of places that use that alley in this local area, and that's important. One other thing, Madam Chair, and through you to the commission is, other alternatives for these sites is a townhome type development.
Yeah.
Similar to the one across the street.
Yeah.
Folks have generally been trying to think about getting more than that out of the properties. And that's where that RO zoning designation and what was built there, in our opinion, seems to be, the envelope, if you will, at least from staff's perspective for this area in terms of what you see bulk wise and height and things.
Okay.
More or less.
Any more comments from the commission?
I guess one other question, just as we're talking about residential uses and density, and I know our code kind of speaks to RM1A is medium density, RO is higher density, and obviously that's got to do with floor area ratios. Is there anything with like actual number of units that are going to go in here? Because in terms from a code perspective, like encouraging more units, meaning smaller units, or less units, meaning bigger units. Just because, I think it'd be interesting to have some ability to influence, are these more $4 million condos that are going to get built, or are they more like, housing that's actually attainable and can be lived in by, people at 100% AMI?
Right. So, Madam Chair, I may respond.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I do know when some of our developers have come, they said, well, I could put 80 units in this property, but I chose not to because I wanted to have bigger, nicer units, so.
Okay, so in terms of zoning, we do not dictate unit sizes except for a minimum size for inclusionary units, which is important, okay? So we don't, and that's an important flexibility. The market varies, funding varies. I mean, investors are looking for investments to make that they feel are something they want to back. And so that isn't independent of the things that you're talking about. That is very much dependent on those things. And so you're right, they could do a host of things. And we've seen in a number of sites where there've been fewer units than possible by the zoning. The zoning just provides an envelope of things. You don't have to fill it, right? You could do a smaller building in a zoning district that allows a larger building, things like that. Typically, people try to maximize things under the zoning, but the maximization equation involves more than just units, the number of units. It involves financial metrics. It also involves what in the marketplace do you feel you're competitive in. So there are developers that are expert in or trying to hit certain market segments. These are things that the market decides. We're not dictating what we think this market right here is going to be. We're hearing from the development community that's vetting that and knows and makes that investment and attracts money to do that. So they're trying to work within certain constraints. What they're saying here is that the market is asking for more density than the current zoning. That you can say. But within whatever zoning it is, whether or not they maximize the total number that they could get, again, that goes to how the building's laid out, the idiosyncratic nature of the lot, and also, and not to emphasize, I want to emphasize significantly, parking. Parking drives a lot of what can happen in development. So you may have a theoretical density by zoning, sure, but are you going to be able to park it? And so in theory you could. How many floors down you want to go below the ground? Well, that gets very expensive. So then it starts to change things very quickly, which then goes back to, well, how big are those units exactly? So parking looms large, it does. And we have parking provisions in our code that provide for the transit-oriented, reduce some parking requirements. We have provided relief for parking to a certain extent. You could see that in other developments north of here, the Albions and others, and that's worked. But, I will say that we are a suburban city. We are not a city that necessarily has 0 cars per household. Could you possibly get away with somewhere around the low ones for a household in downtown Hyde Park? Yeah, and we have developments that have that, okay? And they're full. So yes, but can we say none? I would say that's hard. That's a stretch. You need to have probably 1 car realistically as a household. Even though we have our transit connections to the city and all, you could probably get away from that. And then also it goes to marketability. What market segments are these developers looking to attract, and what are they looking for? So you could slice the onion very thinly, right? It depends on how many units you're trying to propose. There's lots of tiny market segments. So I appreciate your indulgence. I just wanted to share with you some thoughts just off the top of the head on those matters, because I know those are things that are looming large in other developments. What I can say though, in terms of affordability, is that the market rate aspect is dictated by the market and what folks can get funding for and want to pursue. But then there's the inclusionary units, and those we do dictate an affordability requirement. And so that is, how we're providing for affordability within otherwise market rate developments. And so that does help distribute the inclusionary housing throughout the community, as opposed to concentrating in buildings of only affordable units. So there's a policy value there. It's incorporating within otherwise market rate buildings throughout. And so the units do have to take on, amenities that are similar, as you're aware, right? And we make sure they're not clusters in only certain areas of buildings, but rather distributed throughout buildings in a way that doesn't, isolate or segregate the affordable units from the other units, so as to truly provide an inclusionary situation. So not only is it inclusionary throughout the community as it's dispersed throughout many market rate developments, but also even within the buildings themselves. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any more comments from the commission? Otherwise, I think we need to get the applicant up to, since we're doing all the talking about their project, we should probably.
Hear more about it.
All right, come on up. I'm not swearing anybody in, but I'll need, you to tell us your name and spell your last name and.
All right. All that kind of stuff. No swearing in because this is just an informal situation.
Yes.
All right, so good evening. My name is Michael Esger, and I'm a zoning attorney with the law firm of Acosta Esger, and I'm here on behalf of Structa LLC, the applicant for the project, and the team, David Goldman, who's a principal, Chris Michalek from SGW Architecture and Design, and Jeff Michael, also the owner of the property, sort of a Highland Park-centric team. And so we're all very pleased with the robust discussion and really to be here tonight to talk about this exciting project. And coincidentally, I've been working on this project with different developers for a number of years and really bothering Director Fontaine with all kinds of different requests. And I really appreciate, Carl, your effort and your presentation and all the thoughtful discussion that we're having about the project and zoning. You know, as a fellow Highland Park resident, I'm really excited about this particular project and this team because I think that it really addresses a lot of the unique characteristics of what is a very challenging site. And it's been vacant for years and on the market and talked about and looked at by many different people. And it's been very difficult to figure out a project here for a lot of the reasons that you're all discussing and struggling with. And I wanted to try to add a little clarity. You know, the biggest issue that we have is that steep slope. I mean, we're at the top of a ski hill that's, you know, 20 feet and at least, and it twists and turns and from different angles. And so, but this team has really studied it. It's been very thoughtful. It's studied the immediate context. It's also studied the area around it and the broader community. And what I think I would like to start with is when I'm looking at a project, and I do this a lot, the zoning district matters, but it's just all these numbers, RO, B45, RM1A. It starts for me with, let's look at what fits in to the area. And we think that this really fits in on for a number of reasons. We have on the block, and if we pull up the zoning map, we can see that if we look at our block from Central to McGovern to Laurel to Hickory, the predominance of the block is B46. And then really, we looked at this site as one project and learned that later the interpretation is really it should be two separate sites because it's divided by the alley. And that's fine. The east building at 1696 McGovern, that's the address of the building, is really a McGovern address. That's our front. That's where the lay-by is. That's where people will pull up to. And the McGovern side of things, as you can see, is got B45 all around it. We originally said we think that we fit into B45, to your point on, Commissioner, on, relief and what we need. And we just thought, well, it fits right in. We're immediately adjacent to a 6-story building. And there's you recently approved a 6-story building at 734 Central, right across the street on McGovern. And so we thought makes sense. We'll go from the 6 stories, which is definitely too dense. And I agree with Director Fontaine that we're transitioning to a more residential neighborhood as we go south. So we now step down to a 5-story building. And then the townhomes to our south go down to a 4-story right across the street. And so we felt like this is a really logical step down. We do think there's a big difference between the site on the corner versus the 793 Laurel, which comes down the hill and is actually very consistent with the RO buildings that Fulton Development did to our west and those 4-story buildings. And so if we think of these, since we're being told they're two separate, definitely, we're fine with that. And we can approach it as two separate developments. If we talk about the east building, and again, we suggested the higher zoning. I think staff felt more comfortable with the RO district, and I agree that there's a difference on Laurel versus Central. Again, we think of this as McGovern, that's our front. It's a corner lot, so we have 2 frontages, one on Laurel, one on McGovern. And so if we look at that building, really, we are, if we decide to go with the RO, which is, again, we're fine with, we do have to ask for more zoning relief. But everything we're asking for is totally in the code and is very consistent with other RO approvals, in fact, recent approvals that have just secured approval in the RO district. Let me talk quickly about the 793, that's our west building. There, we really do fit much more closely into the RO district. Our height at 61 feet with the fifth story addition that's set back is very similar to a recent RO approval that was just done in front of this body, in front of the city council. The lot coverage there to our west, those Fulton Market, those Fulton developer buildings just to our west that are also RO zoned, they have an excess of a 50% lot coverage. We have an excess of a 50% lot coverage. Our height is much more, is pretty consistent with those buildings. And again, we're set back much more significantly than they are. So we are asking for an extra story, there's no question, but we are following the code to be set back, which calls for, step back, which is a 15-foot step back. We're in excess of that. We're more like I believe a 25-foot step back. And then we're also then, as we go then to the 1696 McGovern building, there we're taller, but it's also challenging to figure out our height because of the slope, of the extreme slope. But what we've done is we've said, look, we're going to be consistent with the other recent RO approvals in the not far from here, a couple blocks away, where there they have this similar height as we're asking for, and they step back their fifth floor. For what we're doing is stepping back our fourth floor fairly significantly, and our fifth even more significantly. So again, our lot coverage, I listened to the city council debate about lot coverage recently at the last meeting, and I've heard ranges in the 40s, 50s, up to 80%. And I think Commissioner Henry, you said it, it is difficult to think about, there's a lot of different zoning districts here, but again, logically, we are right down in this central, in the downtown area. We are again, appropriately transitioning from the north to the south, from the east to the west, and if we're right across the street from us is B45 zoning, the Resny Jeweler parking lot, that's at some point you could envision a building there. And so I think we very much fit into our context, and I'll leave you with this. The circulation, the recently approved buildings, there was a lot of debate about cars and circulation and traffic. We think there's a lot of mitigating factors to our site because of this large alley. We think that this site really is sort of separates, and it provides for access and vehicular access. We're coming off of, we're 65 feet away, the buildings are separated. So we have a 45-foot setback to our rear. We have a lot of nice open space features. We have a lot of, we exceed our parking requirement, and we exceed, and so this is not a dense project by any means. In fact, it was about half as dense as we could be allowed if we included bonuses, inclusionary bonuses. So we're about half as dense as we could be, but we are again, asking for this extra space for larger luxury condos, which we've seen there's a strong market for. So that's sort of a little bit of intended thing, and I'd love to discuss a little more about the zoning. I don't think we'll that single family home that's between us, we don't see it as a problem, because if they logically came in, if someone, first of all, we've approached them, we've talked to them, and I'll let David speak to that, but if they choose to come in with a project and want an RO zoning or keep it RM1A, I'm sure that, again, forgetting about the district, they can do something contextual there too, and we're setting that context because we are very similar and comparable to the townhomes or the multifamily buildings to our west, and so certainly they could fit right into that mix. So I don't think that that's a problem. I'd be happy to answer more questions about, or more thoughts about this zoning, because I've really studied the code. I live here, I've studied the districts, I've studied the area quite a bit. But before we do that, I want to turn it over to David Goldman, who has a couple of thoughts.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening. My name is David Goldman. I'm the founder of Structa Development. I've been a residential developer for approximately the past 30 years. I grew up in Highland Park, went to Highland Park High School. Just as a kind of point of information, Michael's a Highland Park resident. Our architect, Chris, is a Highland Park resident. Jeff Michael, who owns the property, is a Highland Park resident. Several people on my team are also Highland Park residents or former Highland Park residents. So we have I say that to explain we have a lot of sensitivity and understanding of the history of Highland Park. And it's also very important to us. As far as to comment on sort of what we're trying to accomplish here, I will say, I hope this isn't a hackneyed phrase, but Daniel Burnham once said, "Make no small plans, for they have not the power to stir souls, and probably will fail." So with that in mind, I acknowledge this is not a small plan. However, we believe very strongly that the context that is required for this site is a very heavy lift. It stands at the junction of many different, currently different sites, different uses, and different opportunities. And for that reason, I feel that the site, sorry, there's a cable here that's hard for me to stand on and balance. For that reason, the site has to provide the context between all of its neighboring properties. So in regards to our request for the underlying zoning, when we first approached staff, we talked about different zoning designations and what they would permit, what they would entail for what the site could yield. And the staff's recommendation to us was that this would be a planned development, that it would, require substantial, regardless of what we propose, it would require some relief. And so the underlying zoning was more of a sort of starting point than it was ultimately to be defining what we were seeking in our application. In my experience, a lot of what I've done has been in the city of Chicago. I built about 3,000 units there. And I've done several planned developments, and in those processes, it works a little differently in the city. And just saying this for context, my original take on this was that this kind of felt like one site to me. Granted, there's an alley that separates the site, but I look at this as very strongly to be a cohesive development. And so whether it's one application that has two sub-areas or two separate applications, totally distinct standalone submissions, is somewhat, to me, besides the point in terms of when I think about the overall design and context here. I think it's very important that the context of the site respect what is on all sides of it. And I will agree, and nobody would disagree, Laurel is a very different character than Central. And I don't want to put something on Laurel that is more suited for Central. This is not a commercial site. Regardless of the RO's allowance for office, we don't intend to have office in the site. We're not planning retail, and that was never part of the consideration. What we're trying to provide is what I call sort of home replacement options. People want to live in Highland Park, and in the suburbs of the North Shore, it's very desirable. Less people are moving to the city, many more people are leaving the city, and people that are coming in are coming to the suburbs first before going to the city in ways that they haven't in a long time. And so the demand for a house-type living that may be lower maintenance, that allows people to come and go, have a little more flexibility, allows for different family configurations, whether it be multi-generational families, people that
are looking to sell their home with a big yard that requires maintenance, but want to stay in the community, go to their restaurants, their coffee shops, their theater, whatever the cultural events, golf courses. They want to stay here, but some people may leave for vacation, longer vacations, or have homes in other places, or relatives in other places, or people may live that raise their families here, may have moved away, but now have, grandchildren or other family members that they want to spend more time here and want to have the ability to share those units. So the demand has been for larger units, as evidenced by several recent developments in Highland Park, and there's continued expression of that in the marketplace. So the context in terms of the relief that we're asking for, the steep slope of this site makes it very unique. We didn't, at the time of our submission for this meeting, have graphical representation of the site that I think would be helpful for this context. And we will be prepared to share that with staff. And, when we come back here, we'll have a little more visual representations of this. But one of the notes in Carl's presentation spoke to the building being 5 stories on one side and 6 stories on another. Trust me, I would love for it not to be that way. The site, the steep slope of the site is very hard technically to manage, to put the building on it. To dig into a steep slope that on the east portion alone is over 17 feet in grade change is presented us with tremendous challenges here. And there's an additional 4 or 5 feet as the slope tapers off. It becomes much flatter. It's sort of, if you will, has sort of a table at McGovern that kind of gradually slopes, and then it drops off, and then it kind of becomes more gradual again as it crosses the alley and goes to the west portion of the site at 793. This is why the east building has 2 stories stepped back significantly in excess of what the plan development standards require. And frankly, when we designed them and we started thinking of that, we had to step back there first. And as we applied those standards, realized how far in excess we were, because that was sort of the natural tendency to pull that mass away from the street. From street view, the building appears, and you can see this in the elevation, sort of, not as well as if we had a 3D sort of version of this, but there's sort of a 3-story vertical run, and then the building steps back and steps back again. So those 2 upper stories, as seen if you were standing at the intersection of Laurel and McGovern, those are much less prominent to the eye, and as it goes downhill, that falls away. Looking at it from the other way, it does present that challenge. The slope does get in the way of being able to do that. So you'll see that on the west, that whole garage entry, we actually pushed the building back an additional, I think, 40 feet, 35 feet, something from the alley in order to mitigate the amount of that protrusion of that mass coming out, to minimize that. And that has the added effect of allowing us to create a large landscape buffer between the 2 buildings, giving the building much more openness in between, so that the buildings don't really feel like they're on the alley, even though they are. It's important, to provide that context here. As far as the lot coverage goes, again, the slope plays a big part in that. If we were fully underground with the garage, we wouldn't have as much of the building projecting out. So that the site itself provides significant challenges to us that a flat site doesn't have. And so that's, I think, what Michael was alluding to, in sort of the challenges and sort of how we view the height of the building in relation to the slope of the site. And so we've taken steps to try to mitigate those things. I would say, I just want to make a comment about the utility relocation, because that came up as something of significant discussion, and whether that's considered a public benefit or not. We have been told
that there is a strong demand by the various city departments, that several of those utility poles, including large three-phase transformers that are at the corner, have made it difficult for trash trucks, fire trucks to make turns and maneuvers in the alley. So part of what we're planning is to bury that stuff underground on our property to open up the intersection. There's two alleys back there. There's one that is a north-south alley that runs parallel to McGovern, and then it turns and runs west, parallel to Laurel. So that, what we plan with the opening, where it shows on this diagram the new pad-mounted transformer, the large three-phase transformers, several poles and large equipments and overhead cables, which is to the east of that, more towards the corner of that alley. So that opens that up. Yeah, I think some of that stuff is on the property, some of it isn't, some of it's in the alleys, but regardless, at significant cost to the development, we plan to modernize those facilities. They serve all the way down the alley to the west. They serve across the street to the south, feeding that Laurel Park, is it? Development with the townhomes that are across the street on Laurel. So we would be significantly upgrading the utility facilities as part of this. So maybe there's some room for further nuanced discussion as to what portions of that might constitute a public benefit. I think that that covers a lot of what I wanted to say, but what I'm hoping to hear from the commissioners tonight, and I appreciate you guys staying late to, meet with us and give us this feedback, because it's critical to us being able to determine the future of this site, which many people have tried to redevelop. We hope to be successful at it. But what we're trying to ascertain is if there's concerns about how we're going about the zoning application to rezone the site in terms of the relief. If the planned development doesn't provide us or you with enough flexibility to get comfortable with what we're proposing on its own, is that there a different underlying zoning classification that might make sense to consider, or is that even necessary? And also, given the constraints of the site, which Michael and I have laid out, how do we maximize what we can put on the site in context with the much larger building? And I think it was said that the McGovern House was 5 stories adjacent to us. It's actually more like 6 stories if you're comparing apples to apples, because in the presentation, they spoke of our garage as the first story with 5 stories above, and McGovern House has much deeper garage and a much taller building. And as it goes towards Central and along Central, goes down the slope there, it's significantly taller, close to, if not exceeding 80 feet. So we look at it as very different and a very important transition, because the site to the north or to the east of us on McGovern, that someday presumably will be developed beyond a parking lot. If the market conditions continued, I would imagine that would be sooner rather than later. And so that is something that is going to have to be taken into account. This site is 1 block from Central and Green Bay, which is, Main and Highland Park. So yes, Laurel is not Central, but this is downtown Highland Park. And this is very close to a lot of the wonderful community amenities that Highland Park has to offer. People want to be here, want to be in this location. It's close enough to the train station, makes it easy for commuters, but you're not right across from the train. There's a lot of
sort of, there's a lot of opportunity here that we would like to find a way to unlock to the benefit of the city, to the benefit of residents in the community that may want to sell their homes and move in here, thus allowing their homes to go on the market, to give people opportunities to move to the community. And, we believe that this is a really good, opportunity for us and for everyone involved. So thank you very much. I'd like to entertain whatever questions that we can answer tonight so we can get some guidance to move forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the applicant?
None right now.
Questions for the applicant down here? Okay, so I'll make some comments. Personally, I'm concerned about the overall ask for this project. There's an ask for the height relief, there's an ask for the number of stories, there's an ask, if you will, for the lot coverage. If it's not an ask, it's very close to an ask. There's also an ask for not having to do all the inclusionary units. And if you've been to any of our meetings, you'll know that that is actually pretty important to us, that, we get more of our inclusionary units in these buildings instead of fewer. And I know an option is to just buy them out and put the money into our housing fund, but I think that sort of defeats the purpose of having inclusionary housing. Let's see. So those are my comments.
Just as a comment on that, we have not met with the housing department yet.
Okay.
So I would assume that we have, I'm sorry?
We are that, it's community development, we run that program.
Okay, well,
You haven't met with the
We haven't met with the housing commission.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
you wouldn't, that's
what I
part of
wasn't trying to offend you.
no, I was just saying, yeah, we did.
We have not met with
Okay, yeah.
the housing commission yet to discuss our plans. So we have proposed multiple different options for that. So, and I have history with the issue of inclusionary housing. I served on as the leader of the Chicago chapter of the National Association of Home Builders with respect to affordable housing. So I do have
That's great. I'm just giving you
I'm just telling you.
insight into how this commission works. You should also know that nobody on this commission was on the commission that approved the McGovern House.
I'm not trying to be like McGovern House in any way, shape, or form.
And I'm just telling you that if you're going with, well, they did it, and you approve that.
I'm not at all.
Okay, I'm just, trying to give you the background to where we are.
Appreciate it.
Although we'd probably deserve it.
No, we don't. So those were just my basic concerns reading over the whole project. And like I said, as much as I appreciate the need to have to fix the utility situation, I'm not sure how much that confirms a public benefit that, alleviates some of the other issues. And that's something that you talk to the building department about, in terms of what's required for a PUD and what's not. Any other comments?
I just echo that you're asking for a lot of relief. I think most of it's justified. I'd like to see the setbacks in the open space are the ones that concern me the most. I think, again, the height thing is long and lot coverage is long out of the bag here. But you're asking for substantial relief, and even if I agree in granting it, that requires substantial public benefit. And you're gonna, working with staff or whatever, you're gonna have to come up with a substantial public benefit. That's, the other thing is there's not a lot of specifics at this particular time on the design and the landscaping, which I understand were preliminary. To me, when I first opened the packet, I thought you had put the same building in both at both addresses, because it sure looked identical to me. And maybe that's the idea, but I want to see a lot more of that, obviously, so that,
I know when we've had all of our meetings to discuss the other buildings in town that have 5 stories, 6 stories, we get a lot of pushback from the residents who are like, we don't want this. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when I am hesitant to like it. And I understand that we do need, that it can fit within a step down out of the downtown area, but I don't consider this to be downtown. I consider this to be adjacent to downtown. So.
If I could just respond to a couple of things quickly. Commissioner Kirch, as far as your comments about this being 2 of the same buildings next to each other, nothing would make me happier than to be able to build 2 identical buildings. I've been trying to do that for 30 years and have yet to be able to do it. It was brought up, the idea of the redevelopment at some point of the neighboring property at 801. I do not have any ownership or control of that property, so I can't really speak to that. Although we did do some figuring that if that site were combined with the 7093 Laurel, it allows us to build a essentially similar building to what we're proposing at 1696. That, assuming we could satisfy some of the other requirements and all get comfortable with what we're asking for or some variation of that, that would allow for more open space, more setbacks, more mitigation of some of these concerns. So from a purely, again, I don't have any ownership or control of those properties, so I can't affect them at this time. But from a purely planning perspective, that makes a lot of sense to put those together and to do something along those lines.
it would change things substantially, no?
Yeah, it opens up a whole lot of
They
opportunities.
can't refuse, yeah.
Well, and I think we also can't assume, we can't plan for the property across the street, the parking lot, to be redeveloped yet. That is not before us tonight.
Just one thing about that, it is zoned B45.
Yeah.
That's important context, as the applicant is mentioning, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to look at all these things. The context is very important. And along McGovern, the context is different than on Lowell. And so all these things factor into it. And we're trying to thread a needle here to make a viable project here.
Understandable.
It's a large site, it's complex, it's, frankly, I respectfully disagree with Joel's comment about townhouses on the site, and I'm not suggesting that he was saying we should build townhouses there. But to do that there, I think would be a mistake. I think the context would be lost, and it would then create a sort of a dissonance between what is right across the street there and what is likely to be there, given that that zoning is B45. I think that's very important to keep in mind.
Okay, we're gonna, yes, go ahead, and then we're gonna have to start wrapping things up, because we have a few more things. Our meeting has to end at 10, so.
So just in terms of additional thoughts, I think we're talking about upzoning the property, we're talking about height relief and adding more stories, but yet we've only got, 20 units in the larger of the 2 buildings, or 22 units. To me, I would say if we're doing these things, right, we should have a little bit smaller units and more of them. To the earlier comment about, so long as parking permits it, I think that, I'll respectfully disagree a little bit in that there is some proximity to downtown here. There's a walkable element of this site. And so, I would like to see this in the context of downtown Highland Park as a whole, as something that feeds into shopping on Central and into the downtown area, rather than just another high-end luxury development that is going to be, outrageous prices and instead use it as something that brings people into the community and kind of feeds the community as a whole.
Well, and potentially empty for 6 months of the year. I mean, a lot of people, you know, do buy have a property here and then go to Florida for the winter.
I agree with you, Commissioner Hernandez. I would like to be able to have more density, given the constraints that we have with the site, parking not being the least of it. That's not an option. We're not near the maximum allowable density in terms of the number of units that are allowed here. We're well below that. And we have a little bit of parking to spare, but not much. And frankly, my assumption is that as we go along and have to contend with some of these various issues, we may lose some parking spaces along the way. So that just limits the number of additional units. I'd love to build smaller, more affordable units. I'd love to build as many of them as possible. I believe that the solution to affordability is to let developers build themselves into oblivion, because if you could build, and have more supply than the market can absorb, that brings the prices down. Anything that constrains the supply necessarily limits affordability. So I agree with you.
All right, thank you. Have we given you enough to work with?
You've given me some. If you guys think of anything else, feel free to reach out or let me know. I could use all the help I could get here. And I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness of the comments that you guys have made. And I really appreciate the work that the staff has done to help give us some guidance here. So we'll continue to iterate and hopefully come back with some additional ideas that will be more palatable.
That would be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to our final bit of business, the 2026 work plan.
Sorry, Chair, before we move on, and I know that's just a pre-meeting, just to confirm that nobody from the public wanted to make a comment.
Was there anybody from the public who wanted to make a comment? There's nobody
For the record.
from the public.
Public done gone.
Well, they'll have an opportunity.
And it wasn't a public hearing.
It wasn't a public hearing.
So our rules don't make that differentiation, it's agenda items, not public hearing or public meeting. So if it's on our agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
good reminder, thank you. Okay, the work plan.
Nothing, Madam Chair. Each year, there's a work plan that we provide to the commission that becomes part of the budget process. The work plan has been provided to the commission, and we will include that accordingly. So there's the commissions, each of the commissions has a small budget to address the administrative needs of the commission, advertising and other types of matters. And so that budget hasn't substantially changed. It varies depending on the number of meetings and special meetings that we have, public hearing items.
Okay, and where you've got FY 2025 commission members, does that need to be 2026?
No, because, and that's an important question. I think you asked that because we don't know those appointments yet. So we always use the current contingent, and the mayor brings to council appointments in January, in December or January. So before this is due, in other words, yeah. So
we're kind of placeholders right now.
this is presented, and yes, this is your work plan for this year. And
Do we need to
there's no
vote on it
formal
or
vote
anything like
needed.
that?
Yeah, there's what?
Do we need to vote on it or anything like that?
No, it's just like
It
consent,
is what it
like
is.
the minute is consent, just in general.
Well, thank you. I don't see anything. Does anybody have any questions about it? Items to discuss?
Can we add a line item for snacks?
Commissioner, it's on the list.
It's on there.
It's on the list.
It's on there.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's right.
It's in there.
Commissioner Henry and I believe the $75 budget for recognition of commission members is way too small.
Duly noted.
And I would respectfully
Pass
ask the
that
city
information along
council
to the manager, and yes.
the
We'll
city
think about that
council
for future budgets.
representative to express, we could, I mean, that wouldn't even give us a pizza party. Come on.
The whole time I've been here.
Speaking of which,
Get one before you
can I
go.
just make mention of something, Madam Chair? So, yeah, that budget goes to, the resolution frames and such that we
Yes,
provide folks,
yes.
okay? So I know that's modest, but
The
that is what we
fancy
do.
parchment paper.
But, the city manager did mention to me and in recognition of the hard work that the commission has been doing, particularly this year with so many special meetings, that perhaps a dinner be provided at an upcoming commission meeting and before we meet. And so if that is something of interest to the commission, we will gladly pursue that and reach out to you all about what your orders might be and what would you like to have. We would eat in the anteroom behind you, as it's called.
Okay.
Would we have to post that and that'd be an open meeting?
This would be an open meeting, yes, it would already be posted, but yeah, there'd be no deliberations or conversation of items and any other matters that come before you.
When council eats dinner in there, we simply completely avoid
Yeah,
conversation.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
I would have wanted to turn that question back to you to see if my training has been,
Effective, yeah. That's right, so
I think we
I
would
take
be
that
agreeable
there is
to that.
general interest in that, please let us know, so we'll arrange.
We'll go a roll call vote or can
Please, we're gonna hold you to it, it's just general consensus, that's fine, thank you.
I had
Okay,
a
we'll talk about, what might be of interest, yeah.
Okay. Do we have
Councilmember.
an administrative design review update? Oh,
I do want to, you could do that, and then there were a few things I wanted to ask about.
Okay,
So,
We don't.
go ahead, you mean, what?
oh,
ask your
okay.
question.
Well, I did want to state in all transparency, and I believe it's been 15 years, but I know the architect, but inevitably I will know an architect presenting, and I just went out to, it's been a very long time since I had seen him, and I just went to say hello.
Oh, that's fine.
I have no connection other than knowing him a long time ago, and my allegiance is to the city and getting the best project, plain and simple. And I wanted to, I'm still feeling my way in terms of understanding what I can and cannot talk about. But I didn't know if it's being relatively new liaison, too early to ask for more context from Director Fontaine. You can hear me, right? Director Fontaine, too early to ask for, modeling of the context. I mean, it's.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. You mean renderings and such? for different
Renderings,
things? Yeah.
3D modeling
Yeah,
to ask the developer who just, did that.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, for pre-applications, no, it's just intended to be informal, and they're not interested in spending that kind of money,
Sure.
quite frankly. I mean, that's what it comes down to, but for their application, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be really helpful
It
to
would.
see.
Yep.
And I feel what I've seen of PDC meetings, so often we're coming back fairly late in the game and saying, can we see more context? Can we, it's one thing to look at the plan, the site plan, and another thing to see, context modeled out. And then the last thing I wanted to ask about was with regards to, and I suppose I could ask Joel after this meeting, but I got a little confused about the road sign, I don't know what to call it, monument sign, for Lucid, because, and I think, I mean, I can say it now, I would have liked to have seen a different, a different choice, but I'm confused as to why that didn't go to council, why
There's just, within
It's
the
just how-
code, there's certain provisions that
Okay.
the PDC can make certain considerations.
Sure,
Yes.
okay, and with that said, I do want to say, in asking that, I do respect the choice that PDC made, and I fully endorse the idea of a dinner, because I think you guys have worked incredibly hard, particularly, in light of the Solo Cup site deliberations, and you've just put an awful lot of work into this, and I just want to say thank you for that. Because you were talking about the dinner, I just wanted to second that. I think that you deserve a huge thank you from council and from the community, honestly.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Steak and lobsters then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, let's finish, because I'm gonna need a bio break shortly. It's been a long day, I spent much of it in the car, so we need to move on. Okay, do we have an administrative design review update?
No.
Okay. Next meeting is November 4th, 2025, a regular meeting at City Hall right here. And I believe you mentioned there's a few things that are coming up on that.
Yes, nothing was continued this evening, so there will be 3 items on that meeting. There will be 2 sign-related applications and 1 public hearing for an amendment to the plan development for the Ravinia School at 763 Dean Avenue. So those 3 items in 2 weeks.
Okay, and do we have a case briefing?
No.
Okay.
We had mentioned that items were directed staff to draft approval documents for several PUDs that have come through the commission
Okay.
recently that had been previously reported. So working on those, we're working on a number of them, quite frankly.
Any business from the public? There is no public. Carl, do you want to double check that there's no public?
No, but.
All right, in that case, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? All right, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.